Good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time you're listening to this. Welcome to the very first episode of the Wild Strength Podcast, where we will talk about all things wild and all things strength related, and really everything in between. I am your host, Whitney Trammell. I wanted to do a solo introductory episode to really give you guys, as the listener, an idea of what you can expect from this podcast. The name of this podcast comes from my background and education in strength and conditioning and human performance. And that's tied with my passion and interest in the wild, outdoors, and in hunting. Somewhere along the lines between those two things, I really found where they could be tied together. And as I got more involved in the outdoors and more involved in hunting, I started to realize that I could train for and prepare myself for the physicality of the situations that I might find myself in. And I've also started to realize that there is a growing niche of folks who are into training for the outdoors, and I really hope that I can cross paths with each and every one of them and talk to them and have them on this podcast, and get their insight as well. So why a podcast? I have toyed around with the idea of starting a podcast for forever now. Really, I just wanted to start one because if you know me, you know that I do like to talk a lot. And I find myself I do have conversations with myself relatively often. Say what you want about it, but I talk to strangers and everyone that I know often as well. And I find myself having the most incredible conversations, not just with friends, but like I said, with strangers, and new people that I meet, both in strength and conditioning, and in the outdoors. And oftentimes I leave those conversations wishing that I had recorded it, not just for me, myself, to reflect back on, but as well as for others to hear also. So that really played a role in starting a podcast, as well as selfishly, I love to learn. And the more folks that I have on here that I can learn from, not only am I growing myself, but I hope you, as the listener, can learn and that you can grow with me from everybody that I have on here. I was hesitant for a while to start a podcast because it is such a saturated industry. I don't even know if industry is the word that I'm looking for here, but everybody has a podcast these days. But you know what? You never know until you try. If you know me, you know my motto is to just do the damn thing, put yourself out there and start it. So here I am. We're doing the damn thing. I did mention topics would range from strength and conditioning, to the outdoors, but have no fear, no topic is left off of the table in this podcast. I, as well as the guests that I have on here, will talk about everything under the sun. These episodes will be completely raw, completely unscripted, and I have really no intentions of editing them either. So hopefully they don't go too far south, but I don't apologize if they do. I do have a habit of taking conversations a little off the rail or going off on a tangent, but hey, that's the fun of it, right? Like I said, these are real, raw conversations that I want to have on here. A little bit about me before I wrap up this first introductory episode. I don't want you guys to hear me flapping my jaw on myself for too terribly long. My background and my education is in strength and conditioning and human performance. I've been a strength and conditioning coach for a number of years now, and only recently have I left the coaching setting, but I am still in the human performance realm, just more in an educational capacity. I have mostly worked with tactical folks in that setting, so that's military, law enforcement, fire, first responders. And so I'll probably have quite a few of those individuals on here as well, because I do also find a tie between how they train for their job to how you train for maybe a backcountry hunt. And then my interest in the outdoors started when I was just a little girl. I was in Girl Scouts. We would go camping, and that was always the highlight of my year when we did that. And it grew. I grew up fishing on the lake all the time. And then recently I've gotten into hunting. Both my dad and my grandpa were hunters, and unfortunately they passed when I was a little bit younger. But I kind of knew that was what I wanted to get into as I got older, so I picked up a bow, I learned archery, I shot a bow for a couple years, and only last year was my first hunting season. So I'm still very new to this. I still have a lot to learn. So like I said, I hope you guys can learn with me. Well, if you made it this far on the first episode, I appreciate that a ton. I do look forward to more episodes and having a lot of incredible people on here for you guys to listen to and to learn from. I plan to end each and every episode with asking my guest, how are you displaying wild strength? And that kind of brings a little bit of a mental health component into this. That is something that I'm very passionate about. And it's also a play on the name of the podcast itself. And this allows me to get a little bit deeper with my guest. Maybe they want to go deep with it. Maybe they don't. That's okay. But wild strength can look like a range of things, right? It doesn't necessarily just have to be what your last 1 rep max was or anything like that. Wild strength could simply be that you woke up today, or that you put shoes on today, or strength can look like you went on your first backcountry elk hunt, or maybe you started school again because you're looking to better yourself. Or for me, wild strength is putting myself out there and starting a podcast and seeing where it takes me. So I really hope that, like I said, you guys can take a lot away from this. I'm excited for this journey to see where it goes. If I only ever get one listener for this, that's okay. I hope that they learn as much as I do. That's it for this first episode. I look forward to so many more, and we'll talk to you soon.